I think it's about time for us to have a slight twist in the presentations. And we'll hear from someone who has worked in this area and has a personal experience in a school. So may I introduce to you Sagar Gandhi, and he is going to be talking about his personal experience and what work he has done in this area. Sagar Gandhi works as a teacher's aide with prep students aged 5 to 6 at a primary school. Prior to this, he has worked as an early childhood teacher, working with children aged 3 to 5. He will be speaking about the importance of instilling virtues in children early in life, drawing on his professional experience in school and kindergarten settings, as well as personal experience from his grandparents' Montessori school in India. Please join me in welcoming Sagar Gandhi.
Hi everyone, so I'm Sagar and I'm here to tell you a bit of a story today, something a little different to what we've heard so far. So we've heard from our speakers up to now, we've heard such a wealth of insight about virtues and what they mean and how we can bring out the best in children. And today I want to tell you a story about what that really looks like in practice. So when we say, okay, what do virtues look like in practice, we think, oh, we want the child to be a good person. Okay, true. And we might say, what are the impacts of that? So we might say, okay, we hope that they will be kind to their family or to their neighbors. Okay, that's also true. What are some of the bigger impacts of these virtues? You might even go so far as to say, for example, it might reduce family violence in society. Certainly an important goal. But let's really think about some of those structural changes in people's mindsets over a long term and how education can help to achieve that. And so today I want to give you a specific example of a time when that actually happened. So this is what so this is the story. So several years ago, in 1992, India experienced a wave of riots and violence between Hindus and Muslims. And this was across the country, and altogether 3,000 people died, and there was widespread destruction to property. So it was very tragic. However, the city of Lucknow in North India, where I happen to be from, escaped the violence. Now this is interesting because Lucknow has a significant population of both Hindus and Muslims, and is very close to the holy city of Ayodhya. So you would think Lucknow it would be quite a high risk area and violence would surely break out there. But it didn't. And so let's explore why that was. And so a few years after that, in 2001, someone called Dylan Matthews from a team of researchers called the Oxford Research Group did a study into why this was. Why did Lucknow escape the violence when the rest of the country was on fire? What happened? And so they noted that one of the main reasons behind the absence of violence was the involvement of City Montessori School, which is one of the prominent schools in the city. Now there are two special things about this school, in my mind. One is that the school is known throughout the city for being very specific about its emphasis on teaching virtues to children, building good character, teaching them about global citizenship and being a citizen of more than just your country, but rather of the whole world. And really instilling those ideas of peace and unity and how that can be achieved through teaching virtues to them. So the school teaches that very explicitly. That's one. The second is that this school happens to be founded by my grandparents. And so I've learned from their personal experience firsthand. I was born and grew up in Lucknow, and I studied at my grandparents' school. And so at a personal level, that's the second thing that makes the school really, really special to me. So that's, and so in this particular case in 1992, with all the riots breaking out, the involvement of City Montessori School, or CMS, was found to be one of the main reasons behind why violence didn't happen there when it happened in so many other places. So what did... First, let's talk a little bit about what happened during that unfolding crisis and what was the school's direct involvement. And then I'll talk a little bit about what does the school do in terms of its curriculum and what it teaches and engagement with families and so on. What does the school do to actually, over the long term, what has the school been doing to educate children and their families about these kinds of virtues? But first of all, back in 1992, what did the school do directly in that case? So, of course, there were concerns that the violence could eventually spread to Lucknow. So the district magistrate of Lucknow asked CMS to organize a series of meetings between religious leaders from all different religions across the city and bring people together to consult about how can we prevent this from happening. And so at these meetings, these religious leaders and the communities, they prayed for peace, they encouraged each other to see the common humanity within each other, and they urged their own communities to refrain from violence. And so that's one thing that happened. And at the same time as these meetings were being organized, the students and teachers and the students' families of CMS they took to the streets with a number of loudspeakers. So I want you to picture this. Imagine you have a number of jeeps with loudspeakers and thousands of, because it's quite a big school, and I'll come to that, thousands of students and their teachers and families and anyone who wanted to support the cause marching alongside and in the streets proclaiming loudly this message that we should refrain from violence and we are all one and all religions are one. And we need to find that common humanity with each other. So really directly, publicly proclaiming that message of peace throughout the community. So that's what they did. And they specifically also targeted areas of the city which were at higher risk of descending into violence. So they were very brave. So what did this achieve? So again, in that study by the Oxford Research Group, they identified two key ways in which CMS was successful in preventing the spread of violence. The first was the role of building bridges. So, as I just said before, the district magistrate asked CMS to organize these meetings with religious leaders and communities, and so CMS played this role of you could say, an impartial third party, not representing any particular religion, but simply to say, we're a school in this city. We've been teaching children for a long time about the importance of recognizing each other's humanity, and so really building that bridge as an impartial third party between the two parties who were at conflict. And so one was really that role of building bridges. The second reason, so the first was directly in that moment, the role of building bridges. The second reason was the influence and the reputation that the school had gained over the last several decades, 30 plus years, and because the school had been teaching students and by extension their families about virtues and global citizenship and good character and what all of those things mean. And so over the long term, over many years, those beliefs and those attitudes had been cultivated in thousands of students and their families, and effectively over an entire city. And so this mindset of being respectful towards people of different religions or different cultures and beliefs, and building bridges and being united and peaceful with each other, that mindset had already been creeping into the society thanks to the influence of the school. And of course, part of this was teaching children about virtues, and we've heard a lot about that. And so virtues education definitely has a very strong role to play in that. And then, of course, there's engagement with families, and the school was the school was and still is very strongly engaged with families. So one example of that is that teachers regularly visit the homes of their students and specifically consult with families about students' well-being, their learning and development, and what they can do to, as teacher and family, to work together to address that child's overall development. So that's just one example of what goes on. And so really that direct involvement in the moment and the long-term involvement of the school through its educational programs is what really made a difference. And the Oxford Research Group cited those two reasons in their study about why Lucknow escaped the violence. So think about this for a second. An entire city escaped religious violence because of a school. How profound is that? And we so often think, what role can a school possibly play in terms of building? So often we talk about social cohesion and respect in a multicultural society and these kinds of things, especially in Australia nowadays. And this is a concrete example of that. Schools can be really directly involved, and too often we don't notice. I mean, when there is conflict going on, we notice it and we say, oh, that's tragic, and it is. But when there's an absence of conflict, we don't notice it as much. But actually, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into preventing that conflict in the first place. And that's what CMS did in this case. So let's now talk a bit more about what the school actually does. So first, let's get a bit of a glimpse into the school itself. So that's what happened in 1992 with the prevention of violence and the involvement of students in helping to do that. But let's think about the numbers that were involved. At that time, in the 90s, CMS had 23,000 students. So there's 23,000 students plus their families, and of course other students who would have graduated by that point. So thousands of people in the city of Lucknow who were in some way or another connected to the school, and who were therefore already influenced by that message of peace and unity that the school had been promoting for so long. And so there was a certain consciousness of peace that was already part of the fabric of that society. It just needed to be tapped into. And on that note, for the record, in today's date, the school has 62,000 students, which officially makes it the largest school in the world. It is a Guinness World Record. 62,000 students across all of these students spread over 21 campuses, but in a single city. 62,000 students, the largest school in the world. But that's only one thing that makes it unique. Of course, the other thing is the emphasis on promoting peace and unity through virtues education from a very young age, right up until the end of schooling. And that's the other thing that makes the school unique, not just the numbers. And so, what especially inspires me is the fact that when my grandparents established the school in 1959, I want you to take a guess. How many students did they start with? Shout out a number. 5. 5. They started with 5 students in 1959. And it's just grown since then. And since that time, my grandparents always had this idea that we want to teach children about being citizens of the world, not just their country. Respecting people who might appear different to us, building bridges of peace and unity. And my grandparents had this idea right from the outset, beginning with those 5 students at the beginning, and now growing to 62,000 current students, and of course many more who have graduated as well. So yeah, it's over the last several decades, this is a story of transforming the society of an entire city through education. And so this is proof that this really works. Now, let's talk a bit about, you may be wondering, what are some of the specific things that the school does to promote these ideas and to teach students about virtues such as, including peace and unity. And so, for example, the school is guided by the belief that every child is potentially the light of the world. And that goes back to what Morgan was talking about as well, that and that every person is a mine rich in gems, and we need to bring out those gems. And so every child, on that same note, every child is potentially a light. We just need to turn it on. And then the school, the 4 building blocks or core values of the school are universal values, global understanding, excellence in all things, and service to humanity. So these are the 4 core values of the school. And so really it emphasizes, because, for example, let's contrast this with a lot of schools in Australia, where we talk about, you have a school that might say, what are the core values of our school? And they might be, for example, respect, empathy, kindness, resilience, and those are very important virtues, of course. But these core values of this school go a little bit beyond that. So those virtues are encompassed in, so for example, one of the core values is universal values, and that speaks to, thank you, Kamala, and that speaks to, I will wrap up, but it speaks to, it speaks to a lot of those virtues of, the term universal values encompasses a lot of those virtues. But global understanding, like really thinking beyond just your country or your city or your community, but thinking about the entire world. And so the school really emphasizes that global mindset right from very early childhood. And so if I can very quickly, I know we don't have time, but I'll quickly skim through a few pictures if we have them up. If we okay, if we have a look there. So this is that's the study. Thank you. What do I press? Thank you. So that's the study that was done in 2001 about the involvement of the school during the riots. It's called War Prevention Works. 50 stories of people resolving conflict. One of the stories was about City Montessori School. This is a picture of some of the students at the school doing a world peace prayer. They're holding flags of different countries, they're dressed up. It's that emphasis on different cultures being united. This is someone dressed in a world citizen dress. So I'm a citizen not just of my country, but of the world. This is, again, just a picture of the numbers. The school also has, at some of their functions, there's an all-religion prayer, where students from all religions pray for peace. Again, pictures of the numbers. These are my grandparents, and of course surrounded by a number of their students, Dr. Jagdish and Bharati Gandhi, my grandparents. And then this is the certificate from Guinness World Records to prove we really are the largest school in the world. And this, and this again really encapsulates it, which is that because of the efforts of the school to promote peace education, the school was awarded the 2002 UNESCO Prize for Peace Education, specifically for promoting the ideas of peace and unity at a time when these values are increasingly being challenged. And so that is, so that's just to give you an example of the school has been recognized for what it does. So I'll leave you with that, and on that concluding note, just think about this. A specific example of how the efforts of a school over the long term can prevent a society from descending into conflict. It's very profound, and it's a very specific thing to talk about, but it's something that can be done, and this is concrete proof of that. So that's something that I want you to take away, that when we talk about raising peaceful next generations, that process really begins with education right from early childhood if we are to build peaceful societies. Thank you very much.